If you are going to be hosting Thanksgiving dinner for the very first time this year, and stay tuned. Hey everyone, 8 years ago, Matt and I took on the extremely daunting task of hosting our very first Thanksgiving in our first year of being in our brand new home, our first time purchasing a home. And I honestly had no idea what I was doing. And slowly over the past 8 years, because I'm from a blended family and Matt is from family that's like all over the US, but here in Tennessee, he had just his mom, his dad, and his sister. Then we got used to, we would have multiple Thanksgivings. Well, now we end up usually hosting like one Thanksgiving and going somewhere else, or we just host. And through those courses of years, we have learned to adapt to hosting and found things that work for us. So today we're going to talk about 10 things that worked for our family for hosting Thanksgiving. And I hope these tips help you. And I know some of you are newlyweds, or maybe you're just like older adults like us and you've just never hosted it before. And I know a lot of people probably did last year, but like this year it seems like more people are actually going to be hosting people outside their house to come. So these are our 10 tips for hosting Thanksgiving dinner. And again, these tips may not work for everybody, but this advice is from our family to our YouTube family. Number 1 is to pick the date, time, and place. You're probably gonna say, well, if I'm already hosting, I'm gonna be hosting it at my house on Thanksgiving. Cool. There are some people that I know though that like to change it up and to provide a bigger place for big extended families. Sometimes those families choose to rent out a cabin and all the families split out the money for that cabin, but then there's still like one hosting family who usually ends up being the planner. Every family has one. I am the one in my family that's the planner, and I throw all the plans together for everybody. And so like that's my thing. So like maybe you need to find a cabin and you all have the money to, and all the families split together and get a cabin to host it in. Or maybe you do want to host it at home, but you also need to figure out place. It could also be, okay, my dining room's too small, but maybe we could rearrange my living room and put all the tables out there, and then it would also free up kitchen space for cooking. Whatever works best for your family. If Thanksgiving Day doesn't work, there's times that we've been somewhere on Thanksgiving and then hosted Thanksgiving dinner at our house the day after Thanksgiving. So what works best for you and your family? I mean, do you want to do it the traditional way? And like, also I'm curious in the comments below, I want to know, are you a Thanksgiving lunch or a Thanksgiving dinner? We do Thanksgiving lunch. Like once the parade's over, my kids are ready to eat. So usually for our family, it's like 1, 2 o'clock when we have Thanksgiving dinner. But I want to know in the comments below, are you a Thanksgiving lunch, or do you actually wait until like dinner time and have your Thanksgiving dinner then? Number 2 is once you have the date, the time, and the place that you have worked out, to send out the invites. Some people do Facebook groups and Facebook message or Facebook invite pages, or like people still, you know, just text out, hey, we're gonna be home to do it at this time and this is when we're gonna do it. But go ahead and send those out and start getting your head count as early as possible. I mean, don't like Happy New Year, we're gonna plan Thanksgiving, but you know what I mean. As soon as you are able to start planning it far enough in advance to be able to make plans with people, start figuring out how many people are gonna be coming and see, you know, the yeses and nos. Then figure out how many adults to kids. For us, when our kids were younger, what that really helped with is we used to have like one of those little Tykes picnic tables. We were able to put that in the kitchen one year for the little kids to eat at, and then that gave us more room for all the adults in the dining room, and that worked out really well. So get your numbers of how many adults and kids that you're going to have, because you're also going to need that here in a couple minutes for another point. So again, like write those down as people bring them in if you're not doing a digital format, but just get them all down and ready to go. Speaking of digital format, I'm going to give you one freebie real quick. Matt and I have switched to, because usually he and I, we both co-cook during Thanksgiving. He does most of the meats and things, I do sides and desserts. We have switched to a digital format. and we actually make out a timesheet of when everything needs to go in the oven. That way, if he's in the middle of something or I'm in the middle of like looking up a recipe for something, we can both look at that timesheet and say, oh, hey, this is what time we need to start this is what time we need to start this. That's a very detailed thing. Like if you want to do that, that's great. It's a very, very detailed thing, but it also allows you like, oh, hey, I have like 3 casseroles. They won't both fit in the oven at the same time, but I can put these 2 in at this time and this one in at this time. It helps you balance out. Number 3 is to pick your meat or protein of choice. I actually have a family member that I'm not hosting this year, but I've eaten with in the past. They don't eat turkey at all, ever. Never, ever, ever on Thanksgiving do they eat turkey. So when another family member used to host, she would also have like a small, not like a huge one, a small ham instead. So go ahead and have your meat picked out. Another thing to keep in mind is like there are all kinds of Google searches that you could do of how many pounds per person coming. We have found with our family of 5, and if we're only hosting like 2 or 3 other people, we get a 20-pounder. Our thought is the bigger the turkey you have, and I'll get to this in a minute too, it's a little bit spoiler for next one. The bigger the turkey you have, the more leftovers that you have. If you're already doing a big meal on Thanksgiving Day, the next day you're not gonna wanna do any cooking at all usually, or maybe you're like traveling the next day or whatever. You don't wanna do a lot of cooking. So having a bigger turkey allows you to have leftovers for the next time. Or some people don't like having the leftovers, so they get a smaller turkey. But go ahead and figure out like what meat you're gonna do the Google research and figure out how many pounds you need per person, and then usually we round up on that. Number 4 was a super, super hard one for me for years. At one point, I thought if I'm hosting, that means that I have to make every single dish myself. And I was never raised that way. I was raised in a blended family. Everybody helped cook. Everybody helped bring food. Everybody contributed. Everybody, because I mean, my family on all sides, even from like different cooking styles, everybody usually pitched in and helped and brought something. Even if it was a fruit tray, everybody brought something. But for some reason, I was convinced that the first time that I was hosting that I need to do all of it myself. And I was so exhausted by the end of the day, and it was so tiring. People brought food anyways, and I was like, oh great, now we gotta figure out how to fit all this in with other stuff. Don't feel like you have to do everything. Ask people if they want to bring things. If you have like a family member, or even like, I need to mention also, like if you do a Friendsgiving, all these points would work for that too. But like if you know somebody who makes like this amazing, my mother-in-law makes a cranberry relish. It's different. Matt still prefers to have the cranberry you can slice. I think that's the jelly, not the stuff with the berries, the stuff you slice. Because the next day, our tradition is after the next day after Thanksgiving, we decorate for Christmas. So the next day he will, while I'm helping the kids put lights on the tree, because of his back, it's hard for him to do that. He will go and make leftover Turkey Day sandwiches, and it's become our tradition. I'm putting lights on the tree and he's making the sandwiches. So he likes having that. But the relish was something else that like she makes that I've never had before, and it was a really good addition to the meal when we had it on Thanksgiving Day. So that's something that she brings every year. She also has some other dishes that she makes that she brings every year. Ask people if there's something they want to make, and if people end up that they just can't make anything and they either want to contribute money, or sometimes you're just having friends over who don't have money and you're just doing it to be a blessing, then don't worry about it. But at least be willing to accept help from other people and do your meal plan after you know who's bringing what. That way you're not going to sit there and plan to have a cranberry relish if somebody else is bringing a cranberry relish. Leading into that, number 5 is to then plan your side dishes. And this is one that also I had a hard time with that before. I was like, I have to have the traditional ones. I have to do it the traditional way. I have to do blah, blah, blah. Do what makes you happy. I have family that for years, like they had to have this one person bring homemade cornmeal or homemade, it's called stuffing when it's in the bird, dressing, homemade dressing every single year. And I did not like it ever. I've had like one style of like the homemade that I actually really, really liked. And it was the year that my Nana and I baked like 3 major pans of actual cornbread. And we made that into dressing, and it was fantastic. But like, I had another family member that for years when I was growing up, like she made this dressing and I didn't like it. I would eat it because I was told, you know, I was always raised that you don't say negative, so like I didn't. But like when I became an adult, I'm like, I hate this stuff. Like I did not ever want to make it. But I was like, oh no, well I have to do it because it's tradition. No, you don't. I also have another family member that she was like, why are you making it from scratch? I've always done stovetop since you were like a baby. I'm like, are you serious? And she said, yeah. So do what makes you happy. Like if you want to do stovetop, do stovetop. When some family comes over, we do Sister Schubert rolls. When a different family comes over, we do croissant rolls, and we don't care. Like we like both. We don't care. I do Sister Schubert rolls again because like Matt takes the leftover rolls to make the sandwiches, and I like those sandwiches. They become part of our tradition. But make dishes that make you happy after you know what everybody else is bringing. And if that so-and-so is so insistent on that, you can be like, well, that's something that you could possibly bring. And I've done that to handle it before. I was like, well, if you would like to bring that, you can. And then later they were like, you know, I decided not to bring that because it's just so much hard work. And then we had stovetop and she liked it. So it was kind of funny to me. But make dishes that make you happy. It's all about being together and being thankful for what you have and just celebrating a holiday together as a family. Don't stress if I'm making super complicated dishes. I may do a video on like one of the absolutely ridiculously easy side dishes you can do for Thanksgiving, just because I want to show you all that not all the dishes have to be super complicated. And our meals and recipe list also already has dishes that we use every year. Number 6 is to plan your portions. This is the one I was going to get back to. The reason I say plan your portions, some people, like if you're going on a major weight loss journey, you'll splurge at Thanksgiving, but you don't want those leftovers in your fridge because you're afraid that you'll overindulge and ruin your diet completely. You do what you need to do. If you want to do like absolute minimum or send food home with people, do that. You do that. You rock. You've done amazing staying on your diet. Keep going. I am here for you. But if you're like us and you're like, hey, that's our day to cook, but then the rest of the weekend we want to spend time together as a family. We don't want to have to cook again. Having the leftovers is fine, and we know how to portion control leftovers. You do that and you rock it and you get those leftovers put up in the fridge. And I'll get to that in a minute too, but like get those leftovers done and plan those portions where you do it. One of my tips I will share for this one, because this will all change depending on people. Most people say plan 2 rolls per person and then round it up to the next bag size of whatever that is. I don't. I plan 3 to 4 per person because, again, back to Matt makes these really incredible sandwiches the day after Thanksgiving. I need extra rolls for that. And usually with Sister Schubert rolls, they're not super huge. You can sometimes go through 2 of those on a Thanksgiving dinner. So if I want leftovers, I'm gonna either A, buy a bag, put it in my deep freeze where nobody knows it exists except me, and just leave it there, or B, I'm gonna make a whole lot more than I actually need. Number 7 is desserts. Now, some people are like, oh, I just do the basic apple pie, or the basic pumpkin pie with some Cool Whip on the side, and that'll be plenty. And if that's your thing, go for it. We have just found that it's the one holiday a year. Like again, I will go back to, if you've been on a super strict diet and this is your one splurge, you don't want to completely splurge and ruin it, then I totally get that. Also, there's some healthier dessert options out there. Or if you're gluten-free, there's dessert options out there. But we personally are just like, you know, it's Thanksgiving, it's a holiday. And for us, it's a big 4-day weekend. So for us, the more desserts, the merrier. But definitely don't feel like you have to skimp on desserts. Also, honestly, desserts aren't super expensive unless you go extremely elaborate. And another tip for this just as well, don't feel like you have to make a pumpkin pie from scratch hosting your first ever Thanksgiving. We never make a pumpkin pie from scratch when we host Thanksgiving. We buy a store-bought one every single time. Instead, we make this one traditional pie that I have been taught how to make for years as a kid that my kids make and throw together for Thanksgiving. Don't feel like you have to go like super extreme above and beyond. Do what makes you happy and have the desserts that would make you happy, and just be happy and enjoy the day together as a family. So now that we've talked about the food itself, the last 3 tips are not really based on like actual cooking for Thanksgiving, but number 8, the week before Thanksgiving, before we buy all the fresh foods and finish getting out those last bits of pieces, like don't forget your French fried onions for green bean casserole. I do that almost every year. Don't do that. Get your French onions for green bean casserole. Also, French's is usually the best. Anyways, the week before, clean your fridge out. Get the fridge cleaned out and freezer. don't forget to clean your freezer space out and your pantry. Have room for the Thanksgiving food before you go shopping so that you will have plenty of space to put the food before you purchase it. Number 9 is before your guests arrive, you're probably, if you're anything like me, you're gonna go into cleaning mode. Clean in reverse order. That's our tip for number 9, is clean in reverse order. What does that mean? I'm glad you asked. So normally what I do is, instead of hitting like the front porch, first and foremost, a week before, because guess what? It's fall. You're gonna have leaves again. Or in the case of the first year we hosted, we had snow on our first Thanksgiving hosting on our first year in our new home. So yeah, that was fun. That made it so much more interesting. Trying to get everybody up our driveway. That usually looks like a waterfall when it rains. So picture that with snow on it. Anyways, so I don't clean like the entryways a week before. They get cleaned the day of. I don't clean the living room a week before deep cleaning it. I deep clean it the night before. The rooms that I will start with beforehand, again, because we're not hosting overnight, is the bedrooms. If you have a guest bedroom, this would also work though, because just freshen up the bedding like a couple days before. Have it ready and done and you're good to go. And then you can focus on the living room, the dining room, the bathrooms, the kitchen. Then you can focus on all of those. I also usually do like a little bit every day for a week leading up to Thanksgiving for the kitchen, like wiping down cabinets, again, the fridge, the pantry, the freezer, all of those. But I don't focus on the entryways a week before. I try to hit those like absolute minimum before people come, unless it needs like a lot of work, so that way those spaces are the freshest right before people show up at my door. Number 10, back to this. Schedule yourself some downtime immediately after. Cooking Thanksgiving dinner is a big job, whether you have somebody to share it with that helps you co-cook, whether people help or not, if you're doing it solo by yourself, if you have 10 million people in your house helping. Hosting is it can be a mentally draining thing, and it's not like because it's stressful, it's just like there's all the happy and joy emotions, and then once those are gone, usually you're tired and you're just worn out because the adrenaline's been up all day. Make sure you're scheduling yourself some downtime as soon as it's all over. Matt and I sometimes will go and play Minecraft, or the kids will play Minecraft, or we'll go and watch Christmas movies at night, or we just will go and just take a nap or whatever. Do whatever you need to do afterwards when everybody's gone and all the cleanup's finished up, to just take some time to relax. Because again, it's Thanksgiving. It's a holiday mostly based on being thankful for what you have, being thankful for where you are in life. Take that time to just rest, relax, and just look back on all the positive things of the day. So those are our 10 things that we recommend from just our personal experience of hosting. Again, I've never hosted overnight, but just 10 things that we recommend for hosting. Let me know in the comments below if you have any tips for like if somebody were to find this video to find for hosting for the very first time. I know one of my viewers on here just got married and is maybe looking at doing hosting for the very first time in their life, and I want to help people like that. So in the comments below, if you've ever hosted, if you've hosted for years, or if you've helped people host, drop those suggestions in the comments below so that people can find this and it can be a helpful resource for them. But for today, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.